Welcome to Feminist Founders, the community for entrepreneurs who are ready to reject toxic capitalism and do business differently and better. We're your hosts, Becky Mollenkamp and Faith Clark, and we're so excited you're here. If you'd like to support our work, please consider a paid membership. Information is in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Welcome, everyone. We are joined today by a guest from our Feminist Founders community, which we're really excited to feature some of the amazing folks that are in our community and do a mix of sort of learning a little bit about you and your business and then talking through some of the challenges you're facing and doing a little spot coaching and conversation about that. Without further ado, we are joined today by Amanda Laird. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, about your business, and then we'll kick things off?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. My name is Amanda Laird, and I'm a growth marketing strategist. My business is called Slow and Steady, and I work with solo creative entrepreneurs, primarily women, who are doing their own thing. So building creative, service-based businesses their own way. And I try to bring a feminist business lens to that work. And I also had training as a holistic nutritionist. That's a whole other podcast. But what that taught me was to really look at symptoms and root causes. And I bring that holistic approach into my work so I can help folks shift their relationship with their business, shift their relationship to marketing, and help reach their goals, which is like make more money, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Faith, do you want to kick us off on let me just a little behind the curtain moment. We sent a survey out to those who applied to be guests in the series, asking you a few questions. It wasn't many, but asking you a few questions. And so I think we're going to use that kind of as a little guide to start the conversation. So if Faith is referencing that, that's what it is. I shall turn it to you, Faith.
Amanda, so good to meet you. When you said that you support your clients through a feminist lens in terms of businesses, what are a few of the core principles that you use to support core feminist principles? That no need for like fancy names, but just like in your heart, what are some of these ideas that feel important to you that you guide people to integrate?
Well, my core business value is integrity. Actually, it's like my core life value too, right? Integrity. And you know, I'm always thinking about purpose. And I don't just mean that purpose in that like fuzzy kind of like feel good way that we talk about purpose, or in that like kind of soul expansive, like this is the reason why I am on earth in this moment kind of purpose. But really thinking about like, what are we doing? And why are we doing it? And being very intentional about all of the things that we do, right? Especially have studied a lot with Jennifer Armbrust from Sister. And so I love her teachings and I love her frameworks. And so I also really look at the big picture why and purpose of Slow and Steady as advancing the feminine economy, which is the paradigm, a new economic paradigm that Jennifer, writes about in a lot of her teachings. And I look at my role in that big picture goal as I know things. I went to school for communications. I have 20 plus years of marketing communications. And I am so, so, so passionate about that like segment of entrepreneurs that is like the solo, service-based woman entrepreneur doing her own thing, wants to do things her own way, building a business to like live a good life, not necessarily to like be a billionaire. And I want to use my skills and my talents to support those businesses. Because to me, that is who is holding the key to that new economic paradigm and that new reality that like I want to live in today, right? And so thinking about like, you can see off camera, like I have a graphic of the feminine economy that sits over my desk that I look at every day to remind me of things like generosity. And then, yes, exactly. I've got that in my desk too.
For anyone not watching on video, I have the 12 Principles of Prototyping a Feminist Business from Jennifer Armbrust, which also sits right next to me every day.
Yep, yep. And so, that graphic of the feminine economy and, creating a business that is, based on integrity, based on generosity, based on embodiment, not using extractive practices, right? And like we can think about that in so many different ways, right? And it goes through all the decisions that we make in our business, from like, what tools are we using? Although to go on the internet in 2025 is to compromise on your values 1,001 times, right? But, what tools are we using? What words are we using? How are we talking about our business? And then how are we showing up in our own business? Kelly Deals, who I also learned a lot from and studied with and over the years, she always said, if the feminist in the business is not thriving, like not a feminist business, right?
This feels like the perfect place. And
Yeah, I
tell me if
was
I'm
just
wrong.
like, yeah, this was because I was just like, this is exactly like where we came from with this. How are we taking our own medicine,
Mm,
And so as you completed the form, you kind of highlighted a couple of things. I was taking some notes while you were talking. Based on what you just said and your memory of filling the form out, where are you not taking your own medicine?
Gosh, how long do we have to record this podcast? Because the list is long. I know. I sometimes
Let me just say, if you could choose the most, like the area where by the time you've turned around, you've dropped into a pothole, and it's like, wait, it's the same pothole, right? That place in your business, and then perhaps we could play with a specific example of that.
Yeah. This is so funny and it's so embarrassing, right? Like, do as I say, not as I do, clients, right? But
And
for me,
same here.
Like, I just want to say, and for anybody that's listening,
Yes.
that we are swimming in this water. We are breathing this air. We are our mother's children before we can even say, I don't want to be like my mother. And so just our own engagement in this work, it's our own hearts that we're healing while we support other people. So no embarrassments at all.
Right. There is nothing you're about to say that I have a feeling Faith or I or both of us aren't going to be like nodding our heads saying me too.
Thank you. Thank you for that solidarity. I appreciate that. I do feel you right there with me. I mean, I feel like I am stuck in like the next thing, like it's just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and it's like, I know intellectually, I need to slow down. I need to like long-term planning, thinking about what the next move is, thinking about like the big picture. And I feel like there are so many just like the tiny little things of running the business, like we're recording this on like a Monday morning. And, I was sitting down this morning with my notebook and like looking at my to-do list. And it's like, there's like so many things that I need to do, like figuring out my welcome sequence and like thinking about the next sales campaign and like some of these like big picture things. But then also it's like, I have to send this week's programming email to like the group participants, and like that has to go out at 10 a.m., and it's like, I can feel in my business, and like, especially that when I filled out that form too, I was like really feeling it, where I was like, I feel so busy and overwhelmed and kind of like feeling crushed under the like task list. But also I am like, if only I could go to a hotel by the airport for 2 nights by myself and I could just like crush my to-do list, And that is usually a big tell for me when I start like daydreaming about the like solo retreat where it's like, I need to get myself organized and resourced and thinking about that long-term planning, but I feel like I can never keep up with the long term, because that email has to go out at 10 a.m., or I have to get money out of the bank machine for my daughter's tutor before 5:15. So that's kind of like, that's my sticky spot, right? That's my pothole, right? Is falling into that overwhelm of tasks while also trying to balance long-term thinking and strategy.
And you mentioned on the survey, I think that we gave you a list of quite a few choices of statements of what resonates with you, and that if you were able to more fully embody it, that it would feel like it would give you that energy that you're looking as we go into the new year. And the one that you said really hit with you was, I am rebuilding my capacity so that my leadership flows from restoration, not exhaustion. Because in so much of what you were just describing, I don't know, Faith, if you're here, I'm hearing that exhaustion, hearing it's just it's like the waves are just crashing in, and there's no amount of being able to have space in between to breathe before the next wave just like it's crashing in. And they may be small waves, but there's just so many of these little waves that you don't feel like you can really breathe. And what I heard you sorry, there was two words you specifically mentioned. If I could get more organized and have more capacity. And I'm just curious, and feel free to interject too, but if one of those feels more true to you, if it's an organization issue or a capacity issue.
Or something else.
Right.
That's a really great question. And I feel like it's all of the above. Like, if I could expand my capacity, I would be more organized, or if I could get more organized, then I could expand my capacity. And I find this is like always really tricky to kind of like parse out, because I love parts work. I am a big fan of parts work and internal family systems in like a therapeutic setting. And I find parts work comes into my work with clients a lot too. And like, I have a very strong manager part who loves to take the wheel and loves to like update the Notion dashboard and the to-do list and like color code it and assign all of the dates, right? And then that like makes me feel really great. But then actually none of those things are actually moving the needle forward. And so I'm pausing at that question because there's this part of me that's really like, well, the whole problem here is that I don't have a good planner. I don't have the right planner. I don't have the right system. My Notion is a mess. I'm just writing to-do lists on like random sticky notes. I need that one planner, that's gonna like save my life. And I know myself enough to know that like, okay, that's like a tell there that, that manager that is coming out and is like, we need to get the to-do list together, is also like a default operating system that I also know does not serve me all that well, So yeah, I'm going to pause there.
Can I suggest something? Let's see if this is a path that we could take. If I find myself in a this creates that, which creates this, which creates that, neither of these things are the answer. So it's not capacity and it's not organization. So if we move them two off the table, it sounds like they both belong to the manager anyway. I wonder, so there's one of two paths that my system wants to go in. It's the whose voice, which part is in the closet? Who have you talked out in the back who's not getting to speak? So that's one direction. And the other direction is, what's your heart craving independent of this business? And that might be the person who's locked in the closet. I don't know.
As I was actually talking through all my to-do lists and also listening to you talk now, like what actually came up for me is like, I feel like I need help. And more than anything, that's what is actually coming through for me. Like, the to-do list and the strategy stuff, like that, those things are like real, like, cause deadlines, I mean, and it's a different podcast to talk about like the illusion of time, but like the systems that we operate in, right? Like the article needs to be submitted by this date. That's like a real thing. And so those are real, but I just feel really this exhaustion feels like it's coming from just carrying all the things of, being in business, being a solo practitioner, and being, the office admin and the chief marketing officer and the product specialist and the person doing the delivery. Like, I'm feeling a little bit tired of holding it all myself. And actually, what I would really love is for somebody to tell me what to do.
So I'm going to ask you to respond to me telling you what.
Mm.
And, it's okay, whatever that response is. Let's, hear it. Put 3 things down.
I mean, Faith, we are our mother's children. Oh, that's
Just hear what your mother is saying, or what was that? What hit you in your chest just now?
Like, oh my God, I can't put 3 things down. Like, absolutely not. Like, that is not the answer.
What would happen if you put 3 things down?
Okay.
That's even a manager question. Pause that question. What's the thing that you're afraid of will happen if you put 3 things down?
Interesting. What's actually coming up for me is that I feel like I can't even put 3 things down because I haven't done enough, Like, there's so much urgency around figuring it out, figuring out what the next campaign is, where the next client is coming from, like real urgency around money and generating revenue and getting some, link projects. And so it feels like if I can't put 3, there aren't 3 things that could be put down because I haven't done enough to earn that.
So there is a way that your rest and your capacity needs to be earned.
Oh, yeah.
Because empire, right? That your worthiness of rest and restoration isn't innate. It has to be earned. And the marker that we're using to know when we've hit it, can we swear on the podcast, Becky?
Of course we fucking can. Our podcast.
Like it's an elusive bastard. It's just like the moment you're close, it's disappeared and then you're gone. It's right. So you must earn it and it can't be earned.
Can
So I was listening to a reel recently where this woman said that's the definition of a cult. They give you an aspiration that cannot. So that's how you keep being caught.
Cult of capitalism.
Right?
Can I ask one quick thing too then, Faith? Piggyback off of what you said. So I want someone to tell me what to do. Faith proposed one idea. The immediate reaction is I can't. Another. What if the answer, or what if the thing that we then say, do this, is those same 3 things, get help getting them done? What's your reaction to that?
Okay, I am the eldest daughter. You are of an eldest daughter. Okay, so you are really putting my feet into the fire here.
One eldest daughter to another.
I'm an eldest
daughter's in the room.
I already know what.
I mean, help also feels impossible, because, and this is where like to get more businessy into things, right? Like there is not revenue, there's not cash flow for hiring somebody to do things, right? I mean, and it's not even like the little things too. That feels like easy. Like what I want is I want to map out a bigger picture for my business and I want help with that, right? Like I want to sit down with another person who has like knowledge and expertise and to bring human design into it as well. Like I'm a I'm a strategy, whatever. I don't know that much about human design, but I'm a generator and my strategy is to respond.
Right.
And so I can really access my own, like, when I hear somebody make a suggestion or tell me what to do, I can be like, no, it's actually this, right? And that's really helpful for me. And I feel like really stuck where it's like, I don't feel like I have literal like revenue capacity to bring in some help to do that, like strategic planning and visioning and to hold that. And yet it feels so needed. And it's, it's just a really tricky place to be.
Can I
And which is where
also,
I think a lot of people are.
yeah, and I just want to kind of reflect this back to you again, because I know this is what you help people with, that the solutions that we come up with for the problems that we're dealing with are also the solutions we've been told to come up with,
Yes.
right? It's the system, again, talking to us. And since we know that we don't fit the system and the system wasn't designed for us, it's not a solution that can be helpful because it's for, those people the system were designed for. So I'm going to go back to the person who's in the closet or the part of you that's in the closet. And so as I'm listening to you, Amanda, also I'm noticing that you have quick access to this doesn't work because what I really want is aspirational thing that's out of reach. And there's a person that's in the closet that has the answer for today and for this week. And I'm curious about what she or they might want to say about what your heart is craving right now. Before you get into, as soon as she starts speaking, you're going to shut up that version that's going to say, hey, that's not going to work because just tell them you'll be with them in a second. We're going to.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. It got a little bit noisy in there. So yeah, she's going to step away, but she is not going to do it quietly. So can you repeat the question for the person?
The person in the closet, there is some wisdom that this person has, an answer to what your heart is craving. And that would be nourishment for you today and this week versus 2026 or 2027 kind of clear runway. What is she saying that she's not getting a chance to say because she's kind of been locked away?
She's saying to tap into my network.
Becky got excited.
I most certainly did. I did. I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop you though. What else is she saying?
No, yeah, keep going. She's saying tap into your network.
To tap into my network and to think outside of the box, and that there's resources that are available to me. I just need to ask for them.
This pleases my heart.
So why is this so wise? I'm sorry.
I wanted to observe that going back to when I first asked you the question about which of these things that you mentioned were true, being organized or being resourced, the word resource got lost. You shifted it into capacity, which made it a personal issue again. I don't have that capacity, right? I'm not creating that capacity. I don't have that capacity. And that's where that went versus resourced, which can be very external, right? Resources coming to me, being provided to me, being afforded me, which I found very interesting. But then we continued. And I love that your brain has now gotten to this place of community, because when you said, I would like, then it was like, well, I would like to have hiring, but I can't afford that, whatever. And I wanted to know, like, whose voice was that or is that saying help has to look like paying for it?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think that there's multiple parts, right? And like part of it is like this part of me that's like, pay women, like pay women. And so there's a part of me that feels like that's like a values piece, right? And also, I can also feel this part kind of like tingling at the edges that I really do not want to talk about on a podcast, but we're here. There's like a shame piece to it, And I think it's multi-layers. Like there's shame that, there just isn't, that money in the coffers to be like hiring help. And also like, so there's like that business layer, but then on a more personal level, it just feels like a little bit more acceptable to pay for help. It's so funny that, like, what I was going to say was it feels less transactional, even though it is a literal transaction in the way that we use that word in 2025, right? There's something that feels like a little bit less alive to just like put your credit card down and like buy a thing than it is to say, hey, could we work out a reciprocal kind of exchange? We sit down for half a day, we do my business, then we do your business, or whatever it might be. That just feels, less risky, Sometimes I'm going to say no if you're buying the thing.
Paying feels
Yeah.
less risky.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Because I'm going to go to this really quickly, and Faith, I want to hear what you have to say too. But I just want to bring this back to you. I'm holding up again Jennifer Armbrust's 12 Principles for Prototyping a Feminist Economy, which I know you said is a model that matters to you in your business. And I'd like to point you to just a few of them. Number 7, consider I'm throwing it back in your face. Number 7, consider everything an experiment. Number 10, cultivate abundance consciousness. Number 11, a business can be a healing for yourself and others. And 12, a business can be a model for a new social and economic order. I think all of those apply to what you're saying and to what that voice that Faith is helping you bring out. She's in there saying these things to you.
Yeah. For a lot of reasons too, I'm thinking about this iteration of my business. I mean, I have been doing my own thing for a long time. First kind of iteration of business was like back in 2016, right? So I've done a lot of things. And, there is a part of me that feels like my faith and belief that we can prototype a feminist business in 2025, it feels a little shaken, and even thinking about when Slow and Steady launched in 2022, really felt like, remember 2022 used to have like hope? It feels like so far away, it just feels like hope and that faith and that vision just feels like it has been shaken, a little bit. And even like when I was introducing my business and I'm like talking about all of the things, there was this part of me that was like, really? Do we? Like there's this part of me that is sometimes is like, what is even the point? Like maybe I should just throw in the towel, play the game, go get a job. I could be the director of communications at an insurance company, and everything would be comfortable, and in some ways it would become at least like financially. And then there's a part of me that is like, are you insane? Like you would hate that. You would wither on the vine so quickly, right? And so yeah, I think part of my exhaustion as well also feels a little bit like having to, every morning when I come to work in my workspace, to kind of like gather up all of that will, to like keep going.
I am curious about the intersection between the words slow and steady and this idea of us living in a chronic toxic environment. Like so I have a son, adult with autism, and really early on, I had to figure out, wait, actually hitting it with everything I have super not sustainable. Doesn't fixing it, curing it, solving it. It doesn't work. And I took a lot of wisdom from women, mothers with chronic illnesses. And it's like, what's the way to be in an environment? Let's call it your body, but let's call it the world or the current context that is actively fighting against you. And how then do you hold on to or even anchor to, why am I doing this again? For the 15th time that I'm trying to get my son to, for the 38th time. Why am I doing this again? So I'm the queen of the long run on question, by the way. So, but I'm curious about this connection between slow and steady, your business name. What's required to live in this world, 2025?
Listen, here's the dad joke that I have told 1,000 times, which is I should have actually called this business Fast and Furious if I had known. Way to call me out on my own bullshit faith, because, when I named my business Slow and Steady, it was as much an anchor and an aspiration for myself, because we have only known each other for a short time, but I am sure that it is apparent to you both that Slow and Steady is actually not my default operating system. And, when I think about what slow and steady means and how I think about slow and steady is we go slow to stay steady. And I've been doing a little tiny bit of research on the word steady and the etymology to chat about it on my friend Nicole Cloutier's podcast, It's All Poetry, in a couple of weeks. And it's funny that to stay steady is actually a paradox, the term steady state is actually a paradox, because steady is actually like an action. It's like an active state, right? And in our language, in English, we often say you want it to stay steady, which is very interesting. And what I generally mean about when I say go slow and stay steady, it means slowing down, taking that step back and that big picture so that actually we can stay in integrity or stay in alignment or stay resourced. That's what steady means when I think about steady. I'm not talking about hockey stick growth in terms of a business. It was originally the reminder to stay resourced, here and internally. And so this is all just not lost on me. How I seem to have gotten so far from my own wisdom.
I mean, our wisdom is there to be our medicine. We are the point. And that as we let our wisdom work on us, then we can be the change, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how far you've been pulled from your wisdom. I just think it's also, I can sense this feeling of continuing to internalize, to bring everything back to self and sort of disregarding external, whether that is external forces or, then, and repelling external supports. It's all this, it's that myth of I got to do it all by myself. The eldest daughter conditioning, the capitalist conditioning, all of that. So when you think about slow and steady or steady and resourcing, my mind goes back to this image of the waves, right? This feeling waves that are just keeping you sort of stagnant. And when we think about actually supporting ourselves or making forward progress or staying safe when we're in that situation, what doesn't work is fast and furious, right? That actually causes us to sink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So what would resourcing look like for that battery of waves that feels like it's there? And I invite you to think beyond the internal. That's where that manager voice goes.
Listen to the voice in the closet when you're answering this question. What does resourcing look like for this battery of waves?
Good question. Okay. I am feeling a little bit more open to the putting down suggestion.
I was coming back with it. Don't feel like I forgot it.
Perhaps I could take a look at the to-do list that I have been carrying around. The to-do list that I have been carrying around that have like, aspirational projects. But like when I sit down to write the daily to-do list, rework like entire welcome sequence is like just one line on it. So perhaps I could actually review that big list of things and move things that are not actually priority to move the needle right now into the not right now list. Go and put them somewhere else. I think I need to be a little bit more realistic about what is actually going to be done between now and, when we kind of close things down for the holidays. I think that there's that. I do want to, it does feel like very kind of pressing or important to do some of that big picture thinking and planning. So I could ask, tap into my network of incredibly smart advisors and coaches and see who might be able to help me with that. Because I think that part of the reason why I often get trapped in the waves too is when I kind of get into that autopilot, right? Where it's like, why am I doing this? Why is it important? I haven't actually sat down to think about what's kind of like next for my next 90 days or my next leg of time in my business. But I feel like urgency to like keep writing a weekly newsletter, but then I'm not like really talking about anything and it's not really leading to anything. I need a little bit to get out of that kind of firefighting mode. That is, I think also there's a part of me that is like, wait a second, we're not taking our own we're not taking our own advice here, which is to think a little bit about like what is important and why. And so I really do feel like that part of me that is like, no, we need to do some like thinking and planning also does have a job to do, because when I have that kind of clear plan, I don't actually feel so in the waves. It's like, okay, it's like the GPS. I've set the GPS and I know where I'm going, and we are using Waze, not Google Maps, so it might detour and that's going to be okay. But I'm feeling a little rudderless, in this exact moment too.
So someone said you said two things, and I was just hearing even your wisdom from the very beginning when you're like, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. That's what you're saying here again. But you want the clarity on the turn by turn, and that would just free your brain up from this constant like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So that there's that spiral that's using a lot of your energy and your capacity. But that first piece about this to-do list that has one item that's really 35 items in it, all hidden, just hidden in, I want to offer that the list is also missing items. One of the quotes that helps me, and like, as if I'm doing it, but I'm trying. Like 50% of life needs to be lived and 50% of life needs to be spent in reflection on how life is being lived. And that's not the latter 50% of life. I mean, like in 4 hours of work and 4 hours of reflection, so yes. as a business leader, that's my job in my business, to be thinking about how, just the same way as if I'm facilitating, I am ridiculously committed to the debrief, but I'm not committed to the debrief with myself. So the question here is, number one, what should be on the list? What's missing? And it sounds like whether you need support or not, this whole reflection piece and this letting yourself hear that wisdom isn't on the list at all. And then number two, what should bubble to the top of the list is anything that feels energizing. So I guess my question or thought or suggestion is, how can we reorganize this list so it has fewer items? Yes, it has the right items. And particularly it has items that are nourishment to you. So if when you think, write the Wednesday newsletter, you drop into the belly drops down, and you lose your will to live, then I'm thinking that's not on the list. Because when we have a chronic situation, everything matters in terms of creating energy. So I'm curious about the reorganizing. As we wrap up, where in there do you fall? What would bubble up to the top for you if you were doing that?
I'm actually thinking about what I wrote in my response form. Now it's all coming back to me too, which was, I used to be back when I first started my business when I didn't have all that much work to do, right? I used to be so good at like alignment before action. That was like my daily mantra where it was like, take a walk, do the journal, do the morning pages, do the workout, take an everything shower on a Tuesday morning, Like I used to be so good at that. And then once I'm like, ready for my day, then I would do my things. And I've gotten so far away from that, where I've really become like, gotta be at my desk ASAP and like kind of forgetting myself in my task list, And so I wonder, every day feels like too much, but on those days where, I don't have calls or I don't have something booked, like, can I get back to that like slower kind of morning? So after my people leave the house in the morning, I have some actual time and not like this morning where it was like 2 paragraphs of the morning pages, then checking the email and then 2 paragraphs and then, losing myself in TikTok for 5 minutes. How can I actually like lay a foundation, like a resource foundation to then go into my day feeling much more grounded? I was going to take a walk this morning and then I didn't because I sat down and made my to-do list over breakfast while my kid was eating breakfast. And I was like, no, there's no walk today. You need to get upstairs. Now, have I had a great productive morning?
That's that manager's voice, isn't it? Is the manager more willing to allow for resourcing time when it's in the calendar?
I don't know.
I think the manager's
No.
overworked though. Yeah, I think she's overworked though. So she's kind of
Agreed.
tight.
Too much, too open of a calendar, not good. Too scheduled in the calendar, not good. Because then I'm just going to be like, because the inner teenager is very strong too. That is like, no, I'm doing my own thing. So that generally doesn't work for me. But it could work to be like Friday mornings is like my time.
What about that voice that's the silenced voice who says, let's incorporate community. Let's turn to our network. Does some of these resourcing activities, could they be done in community that then starts to feel like, for lack of a better way of looking at it, but for the manager's viewpoint, an external obligation now that's on your calendar because you're not missing those calls. I hear the manager saying you have a call on your calendar. So I'm curious if community help.
Reputation piece, like protect your reputation. You never know where, so that might be. I actually have a slightly different direction and I just want, because I know we're going to be wrapping up.
Yeah, I know we do need to wrap up.
That I'm also wondering about this negotiation for the person in the closet, 5 minutes every day. What's one thing that you can do in 5 minutes every day? It could be, and when I say every day, it could be 5 days a week. It could be 4 days, whatever your work week is. But what's something you will do 5 minutes every day that takes you closer to this alignment before action, closer to this, creating a new paradigm for the feminine economy, which is you. You are the feminine economy. But if we can listen to her for 5 minutes every day, what's a practice?
Oh, she was right there. It is my tiny sketchbook. And I've made it so small. I got such a tiny sketchbook because it is a much more approachable size. Pulling out my book and doodling or doing a doodle prompt or some type of like, intuitive journaling practice, that always does.
I'm gonna give the manager a task, and I'm hoping that she will agree. I would love some evidence of this 5-minute task at the end of next week. You tell her whatever you need to tell her so that it feels like it's important. Some photos of the doodles, some some
Okay.
sketches. I think that we're now on Monday. I think by next Monday it would be cool for there to be at least 3 entries, and we have graphic evidence. Becky and I we're kind people. We'll just look, we're wrong critique. But yeah, how do you feel about kind of
That
let
the
us do that?
response was challenge accepted.
Ooh,
Yeah.
all right, good. We found a middle road here.
Yes.
I love that. And I know we have to start to wrap up.
Yeah.
I know we could continue. This has been such a great conversation. I want to know, after hearing some of these things, thinking through that voice that's in the closet, some of these ideas around this daily practice and the to-do list and tapping into your network of advisors, these sorts of practical, for lack of a better word, things that we've talked about. How does that feel as you think about rebuilding capacity so that my leadership flows from restoration, not exhaustion? Do they feel aligned with that? Does that start to feel like I can see a path?
Yes. I mean, I don't know if it's like very obvious to you two or to listeners, but to me, that does actually feel very aligned, because the last thing that I will say is like, this has been like personally, like this has been like a real life school kind of year where all of the hard, I mean, I don't think I'm the only one, I've come a long way, and I do feel like I'm stepping into a new kind of more expansive role of leadership. And I also recognize that to do so, these old patterns and these old ways of being are not going to support that. And I feel like I'm getting stuck into the ridges of the record. Like it's a record scratch in terms of like, how are we operating? What are the habits? Like, what's the like, kind of framework around that? But this is a good reminder that there needs to be some shifting in order to actually fully step into that next role.
Fantastic. Anything you want to say, Faith, as we finish up? Any remarks?
I have a dominant mother archetype that will show up, and so as I hear myself thinking, I'm so proud of you. I know who's speaking. Like I'm so proud of you because you did a hard thing. Like you kind of went in and you felt the resistance, and you have stories about yourself, and they may not be super accurate. And so I just want to reflect that in less than an hour, you stayed with the hard thing and kept moving through, and you got those answers for yourself. And I just want you to celebrate that about you as you continue to create the resourcing that you want for yourself.
Thank you. Well, I appreciated you reflecting your reflection.
I love that. And I just want to offer to, as one white woman to another white woman, one thing that I have really learned from Faith and from Taina and just a culture of amazing Black women that I've been able to be in space with, that I think often as white women, we are very conditioned into this very individualistic way of showing up. I think we all are, but I think especially white folks. And I just want to keep encouraging you in the same way that Faith has encouraged me and has just reshaped the way I show up. We don't have to do everything alone. Like there is community, and resourcing doesn't have to look just like I am resourcing myself, but resourcing can be external. And I just want to keep encouraging you that little voice, she was there saying, I have people, I have this community, and we have to let ourselves be okay with tapping into that. I don't want to say using that because it's not that, it's allowing that. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for being vulnerable and open.
Thank you. Yes, it was equal parts harrowing and absolutely fun blast. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. And we'll put information on how to check out Amanda's business, Slow and Steady, and go learn more about that work. Not Fast and Furious, but Slow and Steady.
Slow and steady.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being here. And again, we hope you'll consider joining our paid membership to help support our work. The link is in the show notes. When you join, you get all of this, obviously, but also bonus content in a private podcast feed, as well as free admission into our Feminist Founders Society community calls. It's a wonderful growing community, and we'd love to have you be a part of it and to support the work we do with Feminist Founders. Until next time, keep kicking toxic capitalism to the curb, friends.